So you've been studying visionary leadership for quite some time now.
I've been studying you. How you recruit people, how you know which teams, which disciplines to bring together. Very interesting. Most CEOs have a company and there's a hierarchy and there's a board of directors and there's shareholders and customers. You run yours more like a sports team where your engineers, they're not that interested in engineering. So underneath all of our titles and all of your medical people, your doctors aren't being doctors, your nurses aren't being nurses, your engineers aren't being engineers, your psychologists are not being psychologists. But you found out what each individual is and where they fit together in this sort of international affiliation, and then you play them according to where they find their peak performance. It's so interesting to watch.
Yeah, you know, one of the hardest things to find are engineers that are also good with people. And I'm really lucky to have some on my team that really have learned both sides of the equation.
Right. More than that, you know, you don't see what you see, if that makes any sense. You know, from another angle, I can see what you're seeing from an angle that you don't see. That's why I play the role of a mentor. I'm not involved in the day-to-day business. I don't get caught up in things. I don't have any responsibilities. I don't have any abilities either. I think of Phil Jackson leading the Chicago Bulls when Michael Jordan's out there winning game after game, championship after championship. And there's Phil on the sidelines with another angle on the game. But up in the stands, unbeknownst to anybody, is Tex Winter, who's operating what's called a triangle offense. So then he's sending notes, or maybe he's got an audible, and he's talking to Phil about how to operate an extremely flexible offense. And without the mentor, Phil Jackson, who has 11 rings as a coach, who is the winningest coach ever in the history of NBA basketball.
And I think 2 as a player as well.
2 as a player as well, yeah. But without that guy in the stands having that, you know, like having a satellite in the sky on the battlefield, but you also have spies. You also have the soldiers on the front line. You have so many different angles from which to view the thing. So I view your leadership from the stands. I don't play anymore. I'm just watching the game and saying what I see.
Works out pretty good for you, doesn't it?
It's not bad. I've had worse. But one of your engineers, he was speaking at a conference related to the whole South by Southwest thing. And he was speaking to them about artificial intelligence, which isn't really an engineering thing. But in the process of speaking, he, let's say, lost his mind. He entered a state of, as he described it, incredible respect and admiration. Him for the audience for him for his team. So you had also a high-level business manager in there, and you have several of those on your various teams, and you had a marketer person there. And as he was speaking, he transcended. He reached what Maslow would call an actualized state, a peak performance, a peak experience.
And he was light as a feather for days afterwards. Every
yeah.
time we talked to him, his eyes were so bright,
Right.
and the excitement was palpable, even through the screen.
Yeah. So here's an engineer who studied programming and fintech, finance, and and where does he find himself? Really find himself as a speaker. And most people would say, well, you're an engineer, get to the engineering, you know. Hey, what about that engineering? And I hired you to do this and to do that, but you sort of watch, you have affiliates across a couple of continents, and you watch to see how they follow their intelligence or their curiosity, let's say, and then suddenly they emerge as something that they could not have expected, that you could not have expected. So your business is always sort of on the edge of the element of surprise.
And in his case, unbeknown to him, we saw very early on that he is a talented speaker. So we also directed him that way. And it took a little time for him to actually take that on and try it out. And then when it happened, I mean, he was shocked himself how much he loved it.
We did not see that. You saw that. What I saw was, well, I remember I'm up in the stands. I'm the eye in the sky,
Yeah.
and what I saw were the interactions. Where in the world does he need to be? What city, what country is he going to be best interactive? So now he's studying German and French because obviously he's a better fit there than where you've been playing him. He's also now in the oil field with a whole other kinds of engineers, not computer guys. And they're innovating because none of them are stuck to their job descriptions.
Yeah, again, in his case, when I first met him, it was very clear that he's a natural-born entertainer. You know, in the training, you put him up front, and without him even really doing anything, everybody's entertained, enjoying themselves. He likes people, that makes everybody like him, but also each other. So yeah, when people first come in and they have a certain role or position or experience, it's partly connected to their talents, but very often there are many other talents that they're not even aware of. So we, of course, try to find those and assist people in using them more.
Well, we do
when
not.
When I say we, I mean my team, okay? I'm including everyone in that.
So everybody's looking at everybody, but you're the coach on the side. You lead like a coach.
Yeah, that's
who's
true.
Coaching from the heart, who sees each one of them like your children.
Yeah.
So you have many highly educated, highly effective children, but none who are operating in the field in which they got their degrees, which they got their qualifications, none of which do the boring, tedious jobs that they train for. They're surprising you, and then I'm observing that, which is my job, and what I see is a new kind of leadership, a self-organizing leadership. I think Peter Senge would call it systems or a learning organization. Nobody really knows what they are. They're learning what they can be together. Fascinating.
And it also shifts around very much depending on who is on the team. So we work very much in triangles, so that we have 3 players per project. And when you put people into different combinations, it's interesting how they just naturally shift around and take on different roles that they would usually not take on if they were with other people.
interesting that the greatest basketball coach in NBA history is Phil Jackson, and he also triangulated. So a guy's bringing the ball down the court, and there are 5 guys all together, and he's seeing the opponent, but he's also seeing, he's watching specifically 2 other players. So there's always a triangle going on, and things shift around, and the triangle changes. But up in the stands, you've got Tex Winter, his mentor, my job, doing nothing, just watching it unfold, being entertained by it. So your engineer loves to entertain. I love to be entertained.
Yeah. Me too, by the way. I really enjoy it when somebody likes to entertain, and I can just sit back and laugh, Or I love listening to people, so I like to have speakers on my team that like to talk and share, and I can just kind of sit back and be entertained.
And it opens doors. I mean, the people who, as he didn't lead that group. He merged with them as a unit. They became like a transcendent team, and everybody lost their mind, and everybody was in a very high and very deep. Like you fly up into the sky, you get higher, but then when you hit space, you go deeper. And they went very, very deep, and the joy that they had, and then those people go back to their companies, and they say, "Well, I just met the most interesting people," and they bring more interesting people to meet you.
Yeah, that's what really stood out in that occasion. He wasn't just speaking. A lot of people do that. I mean, there's so many speakers. But what made it different is that it was his true function, and it showed up because he just went into timeless bliss, and so did everybody else around him. And one of the other trainers that was there said afterwards, everybody's mind stopped. And that's when you know you're in a certain state that you don't normally are in, sitting on your couch or something like that.
So here's a guy who understands computer, he understands AI, that's the topic, but he's following a script so that, I would say, like somebody who's transcending in ballet. They're following a pattern that's laid out for them, but they transcend the role. And he finds, now he's not only a speaker, but as we notice, he's also, here's an engineer, specialist in finance, fintech. He's a speaker and he's a dancer.
Yeah.
How weird is that?
He's a very unique person.
Well, everybody
is.
But everybody who works for you, they find what it is that's unique about them. And not that they work for you, they work with you. They are not associates or employees, they are affiliates. Right?
That's right.
And all the time I see you juggling 20 to 30 people, and then let's say you put together an event and you reach across into the Pacific and you bring in a movement specialist, or you bring in a dance teacher, or you bring in a scientist or a group of scientists or medical people, and then they, like one of your nursing people has experienced a lot of death, in her practice, and now she's written a book. I was friends with Kubler-Ross back in the day, who wrote on death and dying. But this woman, she has written a book that when you read it, you transcend on the topic of death, and all of the people who've lost loved ones, all the people who are facing death. Just in reading her book and having a conversation with her, they're transcending. It's not nursing in can I, clean your bedpan while you're dying. She's so much deeper than that, so much more than that. Yeah,
she was doing also a speech not too long ago, And that's not an easy topic to speak about death. And she mentioned that afterwards, one of the women came to her, and she was so touched that she just started crying and couldn't stop, and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. You know, I really don't want to take your time." But she was very, very, very attentive to her, and they built this very special connection that, you know, again, you wouldn't get in everyday life.
Right.
Because when she's in her function, people dare to really show what's going on with them, and she becomes very receptive to them, and which is beautiful.
Right. And her pain and her tragedy that she was holding inside released, and she got free of it in the presence of. And I just had an idea: if you put the death and dying author together with the entertaining engineer, and he wears a brown hood and carries a sickle, that could be a really entertaining way to broach the topic.
That's an innovation right there.
Right there. And that's what your team keeps doing. And when they do those sorts of things, it's like they don't know what they're going to do. They just step into a situation. Somebody calls, they need something. You assemble a team, send them in, and the most unexpected, the most wonderful, if you would call them performances or innovative entrepreneurial projects appear. Fascinating stuff. I've never seen leadership like that. And you're not directive. You're not a conductor in the sense of you're moving the orchestra where you want them to go. It's more like the music is coming into you and it's moving you. And this is your lightning rod, this baton, right? And as you're being moved by that music, everybody wants to find their place in, you know, they want to tune up, get with the orchestra, and find their place in that musical piece. Beautiful thing. And I just get to watch. I don't get paid. I don't have to worry. I don't have any. I'm old. You know, I'm the mentor now, and I like my job. It feels to me when I'm doing my job, I'm doing nothing. In fact, I am not doing anything. And yet people are coming to me, they ask me a question, I don't have any answers, and I say, well, my program is limited, you have to ask the right questions. And when they sort out the right question, the question is the answer. You know, I love my job, but I would not have found it without your leadership and without our partnership. So your whole team is like a series of partnerships operating within a field, a teamwork or a team spirit, and getting amazing results. And seeing things that other people, let's say noticing things that other people overlook. They go to the head of a company and are working with this guy on his business, on increasing his whatever he's trying to do. And they don't see him as his position or as his title. They see him. I think of Avatar. I see into you.
I see you.
And suddenly he becomes very human and very humane and very, this kind of wisdom appears between them. You know, you don't get that at McKinsey or Bain or Boston or these big Accenture, all due respect, they're great companies. They're doing something very well, but they're not doing this. You know, it's a new page in the game of business.